What's the creepiest thing you have experienced but nobody believes you when you tell them? When I was a child I was kicking some toy soccer ball in my room. After I kicked it for several times, the last one I tried to kick it really hard, the ball disappeared and I was really surprised. I tried to search the room and suddenly after 5 minutes of looking the toy soccer ball, I sit in front of a door and near a wall. The ball suddenly appear and it has the sound effects of a ball hitting a wall when it appeared. I still remember it clearly and no one ever believed me when I tell it. After being in a car accident, I was in the back of a pickup. I fractured my back. You could see the indenture from my back in the truck bed. While recovering at home, I had an out-of-body experience. I saw my arms come up and I floated around the room. I did have a vision where everyone was multicolored with multiple appendages and a voice said the knowledge was at the library. Me and my sister, when we were 9/8 years old, were in a living room playing on a winter evening. Heard a knock on the window. We went to it and opened the night curtains. There was a face of a mudman, as we called it. We got scared and told everyone but no one believed us. Years later, just last year, we were speaking about it and realized our father's brother had been missing for a while and he was found a couple weeks later frozen when he fell in mud while walking drunk. When I was 9, home alone, I saw a person walking in our backyard. I just watched him. Once my parents came I told them, but they didn't believe me. A few days after my dad died, I found a picture of him in my glove compartment in my car. It was a picture of him in his late 20s early 30s that I've never seen in my life. It had no scratches or folds. It looked like a freshly printed photo. I assumed maybe one of my sisters had put it there, though I didn't know when they could have, but I asked everyone and no one has ever seen this picture of him. I still have no idea where this picture came from. Coming home late after dinner with friends, I drove past a car wash that should have been closed. As I was stopped at a red light, I could see the waiting area was lit bright like the lights were on. I also noticed a woman wearing a white dress with hair down to her lower back facing away from me. Of course no one believed me and even mocked me for it. A couple of days later, I washed my car at the same car wash and told one of the employee about it. He said that if it were true he wouldn't doubt it, then points out that behind the car wash is a cemetery. When I was 9, my mother, an active drug addict who didn't have custody of me, had kidnapped me from my dad. She exchanged me for drugs with my aunt and her 2 male roommates. I was locked in the house with them while they got high and watched the Lorax. I probably watched the Lorax 20+ times over 3 days until the police showed up. My husband has a collection of soda memorabilia, including things like tin serving trays. We lived in a small apartment, and I hung many of his items in the dining area, including a tray that depicted a woman holding up a glass. These had been up for months, when one night out of a deep sleep I jolt awake to the sound of a woman's sharp, terrified scream. I jump out of bed and look out the window around the apartment and wake my husband to ask if he heard anything, and he wakes to everything usually. No clue. We went back to bed. The next day as I'm getting ready for work I noticed a big empty spot on the wall and found the woman tray on the floor face down. I hung her back on the wall. When I was around 13, I would sneak out in the middle of the night and take my mum's car and drive around. One night, as I was driving down a dark street, the car came to a sudden stop. It stopped so fast it threw my entire body forward. When I sat back up, the car was running, and my foot was not on the brake. The car was not budging. I looked out the windshield and couldn't see anything. It was completely black. As I was trying to figure out what was going on, I started seeing intermittent lights. As my eyes adjusted, I realized what I was seeing was a train flying by inches from the bumper of the car. I have no explanation, and by all rights should have died that night. Me and the cop that had me pulled over in rural central Missouri kind of near the nuclear plant in Callaway Country saw a UFO fly in a way that would not be survivable to a human due to the G-forces involved. Watching it was absolutely terrifying, and I thought the cop was going to pass out from shock. No one believes me when I tell this story and tell me it was probably a stealth bomber from Whiteman AFB. I have seen that aircraft fly in person more than a dozen times. It was not a B-2 Spirit. Cop was too shook to write the speeding ticket though, so that was nice. That when I was 9/10 I dreamed that I woke up, then I woke up, then I woke up again, and after getting out of the room I woke up again, and again for more 10 times. It was like a loop of waking up. The night my father died in the hospital, my mother, my sister and I all woke up at the same time. We weren't in the same location. My sister was at uni, my mother at home, and I was at boarding school. The doctors later confirmed that was the time he passed away. One night my wife and I dreamed the same dream. Lost time when I was a kid. Walking home from a neighbor one summer evening. Pre-cell phones, I wore a digital watch. Looked at it walking down the street. Then out of habit, looked at it again while I was peeing after having walked inside my house. It was like 2.5 hours later. One time, I saw a green light flying around in the sky doing zigzag patterns. I'm 99% sure it was a UFO. When I was very young I was horribly traumatized. This made me have an imaginary friend till the age of 15, again trauma. At times it makes your brain try to think up a guardian-like being to protect you. Well, recently my partner had a dream depicting my exact imaginary friend. I never told them about this said friend because it's a tad embarrassing. To this day I cannot remember is this a dream or a memory, but I remember it clear as day. In my neighbor as a kid we would all meet up in this abandoned lot and play kickball and whatever kids did back then. I went one day and no one was there. I sat for a while and an ice cream truck that knew we were always back there came through. As it looped I got on my bike and was about to start heading home. Behind the ice cream truck there was a shadow of a human-like thing with huge pointy feet. It almost looked like it was skipping behind it, then just flipped and starting heading towards me. I freaked out and pedaled as fast as I could, and this thing chased after me all the way to my house. It is to this day one of my scariest memories and I tear up when I tell the story. I've stopped telling it because everyone says I'm crazy, but I know what I saw. Sorry if it looks weird, I'm immobile. I was driving home from the beach years ago and pulled into a rest stop. It was late, like 1 AM, and there was one car in the parking lot. I get out and head to the bathroom and thought it was a little odd that the only other car there was idling with the headlights off. I had to go bad, so I didn't look closely. Go into the bathroom which appeared empty and pee. While standing there I can feel someone watching me, hairs on my neck stood up. Not a good feeling, especially when I heard some feet shuffle. I run back to my car. The other vehicle was still there, engine running. This time I could see that no one was in it, that I could tell. Backing out of the parking space I swear I saw a person standing at the bathroom's entrance looking at me. My girlfriend at the time said I made it up to try and freak her out. I don't stop at rest stops at night anymore. Still freaks me out. I died briefly of a heart attack and I saw what I believe to be the tree of life. When I came back after being resuscitated, nobody believed me. The woman who owned my house before me passed away suddenly. We don't know if she died at home or not. Her name was Rose and a healer of sorts. People would come by looking for her 4 years after she passed. We always thought her presence was around the house in a positive way. Lights would flicker or something, and we'd just say, "Hi Rose," in a perky tone. One day when my daughter was an infant we were trying to get out of the house. I was ready before my now ex-husband, so I put the baby in the car seat and put the seat on the couch and sat next to it. I was staring at her sweet sleeping face, the way new parents do, and all of a sudden I felt a charge of dark energy come towards me. It was really intense, and while I couldn't see anything, I felt it. As it came my way the baby woke from a deep sleep and started screaming and crying. It was crazy. Had she not woke up and cried I might not have believed what I felt. It felt like the energy was being pushed out of our house. I always felt like Rose protected us from that dark energy that night by pushing it out, but it forced her out too. We never felt her presence again after that. I was in a world of shit in my marriage once. I'm not religious in any way, but I looked up one particularly bad day and asked my grandparents for help. They'd been dead for a good few years. That night, I had a dream that I was in their house. I remember it exactly how it was, the warmth from the floor vents, the smells. Everything. They were there speaking about things being okay and being happy, etc. Never felt at ease in my life. It didn't help, because my ex was still a cunt. But a lovely moment in my life. Walking home in the middle of the night, had to cross this patch of road that dipped into a valley with no light or sidewalks. I was walking on the right side of the road, which was lined with tall brush. As I'm walking, I hear some rustling, like something was moving around in the brush. What I see is what appears to be a humanoid creature, pale white, hunched over facing away from me. I could see the bones, if its spine sticking out from its stretched out skin. Dude, I was so shook I sprinted a good half-mile uphill. Funny enough, a few nights after I had to cross the same valley, I ended up running down the middle of the road and a cop stopped me up the road. He asked me why I was running and I straight up told him that spot is creepy. No questions asked, let me go. I think he knew too. I'm not exactly sure exactly what is going on here, but I have had several instances within the last couple of years where I'm falling asleep and I can hear an intense sound repeatedly, but I don't fully recognize it / respond to it for a minute or so. It is kind of like when you are falling asleep and you suddenly jerk because you think you tripped or you're falling, but with an intense knocking or screaming noise. It occurs for about 45 seconds before it's so loud in my head that I can't ignore it. I jerk awake and then suddenly it's gone and I realize it was just in my head. It's not associated with a dream. It happens when I'm still conscious and I'm not schizophrenic. I heard the definite sound of heavy breathing coming from one of the closets in my house once. Raspy, labored breathing. I was home alone. Turned that closet inside out trying to find what was making the noise and found nothing. Later that day I felt a strong gust of wind while painting downstairs. I was indoors and the windows were closed. Freaked me the hell out. Kept a knife on me the rest of the day just in case. Not actually creepy. I grew up in a house that was haunted. Our ghost hanged himself in the attic and a short piece of the rope was still tied around the joist. He would walk back and forth, muttering to himself until one of us opened the attic door and asked him to quiet down. Immediately, the walking and mumbling would stop. My fiance's grandmother died in October. About 2 to 3 weeks later I suffered from a placental abruption and had to deliver our daughter at 25 weeks. Sadly, she only lived 5 days. After her passing, his aunt told him that in the days before his grandmother's passing, after she had not spoken for days to anyone, she kept saying, "Bring me that baby." Now I know it's very common for elderly women to fixate on babies / hallucinate babies when they are close to death or confused. But I think somehow she knew our daughter wasn't going to make it. I like to think that she is taking care of our little girl until we get to be with her. My friend and her family friend and I were watching The Orphan, and toward the end of the movie, at the height of the climax when the orphan child lady is straight up trying to kill people, the family friend walked out of the room, and then little after that the speakers flew away from the TV. One speaker on each side and the cords were behind the TV and nothing was in front of it. My friend and I were sitting on the couch and once the speaks flew / fell off the TV stand, we just booked it to her room past the fallen speakers. It was so scary. Not really creepy, just weird. When I was 7 I was doing homework in the computer room when the computer logged onto the Cartoon Network gaming website. My mom walked in 5 minutes later and accused me of playing games instead of doing homework. I tried to explain, but who would believe a computer would open a browser to Cartoon Network on their own? When I was 18 I was camping with my GF at the time. Her cousin ended up getting drunk and crashing in our tent. When the sun started rising, her cousin went outside to bath, and I followed to see if she was okay. We were outside the tent for only a couple minimums when I turned around and there was a full-blown wolf staring at us 4 to 5 feet away. We panicked and rushed in the tent, scaring the wolf. To this day no one believed we were approached by a wolf. Apparently being drunk means you hallucinate and see things lol. It wasn't creepy, but once I saw a rainbow touch the ground. It was a real rainbow, not like one from a hose or anything. Other people were there too, so I know it wasn't a hallucination. You could stand in it and see the colors all around you. Nobody believes me. When I was 14 years old, a man approached me at a car wash and told me I was beautiful. He wanted to buy me. Once I had a vague understanding of the situation, I walked back to my family's van. The man followed. My mom was standing by the car. Even though I was super naive, I told her to get in and drive. She did it, and she never listened to me, but she knew something was wrong. As we drove away, she kept asking what he'd said, but I never told her. She had a van full of 4 girls under 16, she would have been horrified. I've never told anyone this till now. I feel better. I once saw my uncle who had died maybe 10 years earlier. He was walking toward me around noon on a bright day. I looked away for a moment, and he was gone. Had a pet cat die in the middle of winter, in Canada. No way to bury it, was the conclusion my mom came to, so she wrapped her up and put her in the freezer until spring, so we could bury her out with our other pets. The amount of times I saw that damn cat around the house that winter. Then would remember she's dead. In the freezer. Got to clarify, nobody believed me at the time. When I was a kid, probably about 4 or 5 years old, I was at the park while my dad was playing baseball casually with friends. I was on the playground and this man walks up to me. Something seems off about him, but he was also very friendly. He kept asking me over and over if I had to go to the bathroom. I remember that distinctly. I kept telling him no, but didn't feel alarmed. Just thought it was odd. At one point he said he had to go to the bathroom and he just walked into the woods. There was a public bathroom at this park. It scares the hell out of me to know that I could have gone with him and he didn't scare me at the time. I know I could have been either molested, raped, or kidnapped or worse even. Saw a woman's arm hanging out of a garbage truck in Manhattan 3 AM walking home in the EV. Not creepy, but one night I saw a fairy lying on a tree branch when I was 10 in Argentina. The next morning I went to check the tree, and that exact same branch was broken, as if she would broken it when she took off. Everyone tells me it was my imagination,